It's your boy DKB here. I want to get into some of the recent trade rumors surrounding the New York Jets. We have two new intriguing names that have popped up for us. And then, of course, we got to rehash two old ones from the offseason and really just kind of chat about the updates and what's been going on with those and I guess some of my thoughts surrounding those, right? So one of the first things to keep in mind before we dive into the names here is that November 5th is the trade deadline. So most of these moves I expect not to happen, if anything, until right up until that point. But if something breaks, then I would expect that there was a number of reasons, right? The biggest things that I can imagine to impact the Jets making a move is one, a player severely underperforming at their position, and two, the health of a position group, right? You take a look at defensive line, for example, as one of those early units that have been hit pretty hard, pretty severely. With that said, let's dive into our first name here, Bryce Young. Now, he's been going through it since his NFL career started, right? And this is the difference, in my opinion, from the New York market and when you look at teams like Carolina, for example. And I say that because Bryce Young, he's on kind of the same trajectory that a player like Zach Wilson would have been. You talk about different offensive coordinator switches coming in, the dearth of talent when it comes to the weapons, no disrespect. But Xavier Legette, assuming, rookie, you're expecting him to come in and be your wide receiver one. And it's not like he was vaunted as a, unanimous wide receiver one coming into the NFL. And I can't think of who their tight end is right now, right? But Adam Thielen being an aging veteran, you're not going to see him taking over too many games. And then the offensive line needing to be rebuilt. It was a recipe for disaster. But you take a look at him, 0-2 start to this season. He's coming off, I think he only has a 2-16 record as a starter in the NFL to begin with. And I know he was recently benched by the Panthers for a 36, I think, year-old quarterback, and Andy Dalton, who hasn't looked good in any of his comeback attempts to still show that he has starting level ability, at least for an entire season. And it's not a good look, right? Dave Canales is really kind of tilting that line that we've been there with Zach Wilson, benching him, and then there's the potential that he might need to come back in and start right away. And in the Panthers case, it sounds like even in the same game, if I understood the comments from Dave Canales correctly, he mentioned that they could turn back to him as soon as this Sunday game that's coming. So terrible situation for the young man. And you also take a look at other factors going against him just from a physical QB. If you're going to hope for something great in his career, it's going to be for him to follow that Russell Wilson trajectory. But that hasn't happened for him. And one of the things that really scared me away when I kind of dived into him a little bit more is he has eerily similar stats to Zach Wilson through his first 18 games. And as you guys all know, we gave him the Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf comparisons, and it was complete chaos and sadness and, 5 stages of grief on Sundays for us as Jets fans. And luckily, it's still bad for Bryce Young, but being in Carolina, he's not getting nearly as scrutinized as what Zach Wilson had to go through. So I personally wouldn't want the young man to come here and deal with that situation. But for the comparison's sake, when you take a look at how their starts of their first 18 games have gone, Zach Wilson had a 70 passer rating, 3,382 yards, 12 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Bryce Young has a 70.9 passer rating, 3,122 yards, 11 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. And to top it off, I believe he has 11 fumbles, with 6 of them being lost. So there hasn't been many great points, many silver linings or anything. And again, at this point, I think taking Bryce Young from a bad situation, and while the Jets are on an extremely huge high right now coming off this Patriots blowout, we're not that far removed from the Zach Wilson drama, and overall for the last 2+ decades, not being a team that knows how to handle, manage, and develop a quarterback. So we're starting to build up an infrastructure that I can be proud and happy of right now, but a lot of that still ticks by virtue of Aaron Rodgers to me. So we still got a lot of work to do, and Bryce Young just seems like it would kind of be wasted resources right now for a situation that wouldn't fit either the team or the player. Now, the other interesting name is Azeez Ojulari, the linebacker slash edge from the Giants. He brings proven production to a defensive line. It wasn't that long ago where to start out his career, he ended up having 13 and a half sacks over his first 24 games. And then injuries really derailed a promising career, right? You talk about, I believe, the first pick of GM Joe Scone's career or tenure with the Giants, and he's the last really of the regime from that first draft class is kind of hanging in there, and he's hanging in by a thread. He's missed his last 16 games over the last 2 seasons, combination of calf, hip, ankle, hamstring injuries, and a lot of that resulted in him only putting up 2.5 sacks last season. But still, he is a guy that has a strong upside. Obviously was a potent pass rusher and knows how to get after the quarterback, so he'd be a welcomed addition. He's another guy that I would have concerns about, though, and the asterisk with him would be, will he succumb to his health issues once again? I've seen him talking about his recovery and how he visited a chiropractor to help get his hips balanced in alignment because he's disproportionate or something crazy along those lines. But obviously it sounds like it's helping him out a bit. But the Brian Burns trade, the injury impacts really kind of took a toll on the course of his career. And then when you take a look at what's happening with his head coach, Brian Daboll, he feels like he's losing the locker room. I've seen reports of players losing confidence in his ability to lead them to victory after he had a coach of the year type rookie season for the team. But hitching his wagon to Daniel Jones really hasn't done anything for him since then. And then obviously he is a offensive savant of sorts. And he's not going to care too much on the defensive side about what's happening with players that aren't already star-studded. So Azeez could probably easily go to the wayside and, Daboll not think twice about it. So maybe we could get him for pennies on the dollar or something like that. But again, I wouldn't really be too concerned about it unless health ends up having an impact. At least it'd be a seamless transition, a locker room color change, and maybe a different position in a locker room. But still, he'd be an intriguing name for us to keep an eye out on. And then when it comes to the 2 ones we are familiar with, Haason Reddick, I'll keep it short, simple, and sweet. I'm so far done with this situation that he has going on. I don't know if I'd even be happy if we figure out a way to get him on the field at this point with everything that's happened. But November 5th being the trade deadline, if something's going to pop off, the most consistent name I've heard that could be a trade candidate is the team that I believe kicked everything off that drafted him, which would be the Cardinals. They have a need. Haason Reddick, it'd be a full circle Cinderella story type moment for him to come back to the team that didn't initially believed in him and then rejected that belief and now love what he's ultimately become in his later years. It is what it is. It's a distraction that I went out the building ASAP. That's all I really have to say left on that topic. And then when it comes to Davante Adams, he's in a weird situation because anytime something negative or inconsistent occurs with that franchise, the rumors are going to pop up about his connection to the Jets, going over there with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he's spoken about he would love, and that'd probably be one of the only players that he'd be willing to make a trade for. But he personally seems invested in making it work with the Raiders. Gardner Minshew is only going to be able to take him so far, though, right? And, Aiden O'Connell, while he's impressed in certain moments, again, these are guys that do have a ton of limiting factors around their ceiling right now. And ultimately, there's a ton, I would argue Garrett Wilson's probably in the same boat from Davante Adams' perspective that he's a game changer. And he, because of quarterback play, hasn't necessarily been able to hit those game-changing moments, although what was it? I think their week 1 victory, if that wasn't last week, with Davante Adams, I think giving them a go-ahead touchdown was insane. But toe tap in the back of the end zone, if I believe correctly, Nonetheless, I do think about the impact of him coming on the Jets. Obviously, there's the cap perspective that I'm concerned about. I don't really want to bring over a aging veteran with a huge cap number. But I think about the Aaron Rodgers impact. Every move that we make in the quarterback room or in the wide receiver room in terms of his weapons, I think about how long will Rodgers be here to, help excel or make those kind of moves work. And my standpoint is, I'm going by the basis of he's retiring after this year. So if bringing Davante Adams gives us an extra year or two of Aaron Rodgers, I think that may be worth it, assuming he at least continues above average play. And then from Garrett Wilson's perspective, this is the other intriguing thing. G5 is taking it in stride, ultimate team player, but he has to be really, really frustrated with seeing Aaron Rodgers hit the field, seeing what they did in the offseason, and not translating into the regular season so far. Breece Hall is eating. You're seeing Braylon Allen get involved. You're even seeing the return of Allen Lazard and him looking like a certified number 2 weapon in an offense. And then even seeing Tyler Conklin come on Thursday night for us and ball out. It's only so many targets to go around, right? So obviously there's been some miscues and stuff. Garrett Wilson's early season stats could look that much better, but infusing Davante Adams into the offense is only going to dilute and somewhat magnify a lot of these similar problems. And I would wonder what that would do to the, the ego of a guy like Garrett Wilson. Again, ultimate team player, but still, he's had a rough go of it his first 2 years in terms of quarterback play. So, I don't know. Ultimately, let me know what you guys think. I would be happy on some level or another to get every one of these guys, minus maybe Bryce Young. But let me know what you think about each player here, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.